we can proceed. If we get a quorum, we can double back. Okay. So if we could go live. We're live. Thank you. Like to welcome you to the July meeting of the Human Affairs and Racial Conciliation Commission. It's 5:02 at this time. We don't currently have a quorum. We're waiting for additional member, but we can proceed and open with a moment of silence. Let us reflect on the charge and mission of the commission, the work to be done, and recommit ourselves as we think in this moment about the work to be done on behalf of the city. Thank you. Do we have any individuals of the public who've indicated a desire to present before the body? Clerk is indicating no. Is there anyone in the room or on the screen who'd like to take advantage of the citizens participation open comment portion of the agenda? Seeing none, we'll proceed to chairperson's comments. Co-chair, you have any?
I do not have any comments. Just welcome everybody.
Okay. There we go. So we missed all the good stuff. Again, I'd like to make an observation, since we don't have a quorum and we're not yet to the approval of minutes. I noted in reviewing of the minutes of the last meeting, I neglected to thank and acknowledge co-chair Jason Saccharin for sponsoring a resolution to the city council acknowledging my work, and I did not appropriately thank you for that at the last meeting, reflected in the minutes. I want to do so. Appreciate it very much. And with that, Councilman Bowden has joined us. Welcome, Stephen. We now have a quorum. Previously circulated were the minutes of the June 8th meeting. Any comments, corrections, adjustments to the minutes? Not a motion to adopt. Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and properly second. Further discussion. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Opposed, abstentions, so ordered. Back to chairperson's comments. It's been a very busy couple of weeks here in the city, and I know we have a number of presenters, and perhaps we'll move forward with allowing those presentations. So if those individuals have to have other things on their agendas, we can move forward. Okay. First, Adrian, you want to introduce the folks from the CAP Center?
I'll do it rather briefly because they are so dynamic over there. I could never do justice to the introduction. So Allie, I don't want to butcher your last name, but she is an amazing person and she works along with the community assistance program. She also does several, she has several expertise in her own right. So along with Marla Robertson and two of the grad students, which were Catherine Holmes and also Virginia Long, they constructed this brilliant report where they did research and reached out to city officials and city personnel to come up with a CAP study report. And so Allie is going to give an overview of this document. The document was also sent to you and it's also located in the Google Drive. So Allie, whenever you're ready.
Sure. Thank you, Adrian. And thank you everyone for having me. I'm really happy to be with y'all and grateful for the opportunity. I can take no credit for this report. This was all our grad students and Marla Robertson, my colleague, who is at a family reunion today. So I am presenting this in her place, but it really is her hard work that produced this report and her vision as well. So As you all know, a whole series of recommendations were made through the SCEIRC, and Marla and our team took a look at those recommendations. And the whole goal of this report is to establish really a baseline for seeing what has been done, what is being worked on, what hasn't been done, what roadblocks are departments running into. And so I'm going to just talk a little bit about the report and help you navigate through the report. And then if you have any questions, write those down so that we can submit answers in writing to you all through Marla. But first, I know that y'all have worked with Marla in the past and seen her, so you probably know what the Community Assistance Program is, but just for an overview for folks who may not have heard of us, we are part of the Riley Center for Livable Communities at the College of Charleston, and we do a lot of work with local governments across South Carolina, as well as nonprofit organizations. And our community assistance program is really our pro bono arm of that. And that's, we use public administration students, folks who are earning their master's degree in public administration. And so this is a really great educational opportunity for them, and just a great opportunity to sort of explore how policy and practice lines up with goals, especially around equity. So again, thank you for the opportunity to do this research. We really appreciate it. And I will walk y'all through the report, starting with, of course, we talked about the purpose, which was to establish a baseline of understanding of what has happened since those recommendations were issued. And our process for doing that was first to meet with Adrian. And Adrian, I should say, has been tremendously helpful to us throughout this whole process. So we met with Adrian, we took all the recommendations of the subcommittees and aligned them to different departments in the city and made sure we validated that with Adrian, right? Who obviously knows who would sort of be responsible for carrying out which recommendations. And from there, we researched each of those departments' website, strategic plan, any externally facing information that they have published, we searched for. And then to fill in the gaps of what we couldn't find that was publicly available, we reached out to department heads across the city and the mayor's office. So that is a little bit about how we approached this. We've been talking about sort of what the next step of this would be too. So I just want to plant that seed because this is a high level overview and I think there's a lot more that could be done with this information. If you start looking through, you can see there's a brief demographics section that really kind of underscores the need for your work and for continuing to try to work towards achieving the recommendations that were made by the commission. And so there's nothing you don't know in that, I'm sure, but it's good to be reminded that these needs are still ever present. And from there, we have a progress report that kind of goes through each department and identifies the strategies that are in progress as identified either by the department or by their publicly facing materials that we can find online, strategies that are missing that we didn't get, kind of a yes or no about whether those were happening. And then a few things that folks said, we're not doing this. There were a few that people had reasoning for, like funding, of course. Some plans that maybe fell through over the last couple of years as well. So that next section goes through every single department, the recommendations that the special commission made and where where folks are on that. The section after that, starting on page 33, outlines some obstacles that we faced. They're kind of your run-of-the-mill obstacles. It's hard to get in touch with people sometimes. It's hard to recommend hard to identify certain strategies if they haven't been really concretely operationalized and defined. So there are a couple of obstacles that we hit that are not unusual in our research, which is very applied and working with folks who are, boots on the ground. From there, we have a references section, which I only point out because it outlines the city departments that we reached out to, the information that we found online. So if you're curious about, where folks are in their progress, that is all cited in this report with hyperlinks. So if you look at the digital version of it, you should be able to dig more deeply into strategic plans and other kinds of documents that really kind of underscore exactly what's happening. And the references section also outlines who we spoke to. So like I said, we first did a scan of what was publicly available, and then we did a round of, or several rounds of outreach actually. And again, thank you to Adrian for helping us with that. And so we outlined in the report who we spoke with. And I'm only breezing through this because I think the real like meat and potatoes of this report is found in the appendices. So on page 39 begins the first appendix, which really outlines the recommendations that have been implemented. And the first page of that, I'm not sure if y'all have black and white printed copies, but if you look at the digital version, you'll see color coding in that first, I guess, table that's outlined on the first page of Appendix A. And the color coding indicates strategies that are being implemented by multiple departments, which is, I think, really interesting. Not to editorialize, but obviously it takes a lot of folks coming together to make some of these big things happen in the city and for the people of Charleston. And so this really outlines kind of what are the strategies that folks are really collaborating on. And then from there, there's a table for every department where we found strategies being implemented. And so each of those is cited in pretty good detail and aligned with the recommendation. So you can look and see what the recommendation is, and then the sort of list of strategies that are being implemented to move closer to achieving those recommendations. So that's Appendix A. Appendix B, which starts on page 59, is where there were recommendations missing. And that does also have a color-coded element. So the recommendations that are missing that are in red are things that have been clearly told, to us that are not happening. And the other recommendations that are missing are recommendations that we couldn't find any evidence of happening. That doesn't 100% necessarily mean there's nothing happening in that realm, but we could not identify it if there is. And that was either as a result of maybe it not happening or us not hearing back from people. I believe that is really the bulk of the report. Our recommendations for the future are around how to continue tracking this information. So it's less, our recommendations are less related to the content that we were studying and more related to the process of kind of how you might want to continue along these lines if you're interested. So creating some sort of citywide documentation process where folks can really track their own recommendations and consistently document progress that's being made or obstacles that folks are running into. That's always also helpful to know. Potentially creating some spaces online where folks from the community can go and look at the recommendations and what's happening. And then really streamlining the recommendations in a way, this is very wonky, but maybe ordering them in a way that folks can easily identify, recommendation 1A is this, and these are the things that are happening, and making that really transparent. And I don't want to overspeak about next steps, but those are some of the things that we thought of. And again, I'm really happy to take any questions y'all have. And if I can answer them, I will. And if not, I will send those to Marla and we'll respond to y'all as soon as possible when she's back in town.
Commissioners? Y'all that smart, huh?
No.
Y'all look at all that day.
I do.
Jason.
Allie, thank you for, it's nice seeing you again, by the way.
It's good to see you too.
Yeah. Thank you for the work that y'all did on this, and thank you for putting it together. I think part of our challenge always is kind of like having a body of work that tells the story of where it started and where we are. And I think there are some in the community that, like I've said before, that really want us to be doing more. And certainly there's a lot more that we could be doing, but I think creating, and I was having this conversation with my fellow commissioner, Carol Jackson, before today's meeting. If you look back at where we were 3 years ago versus where we are today, we have made some progress on creating the system, right? I think it's incumbent upon us to take that next step. So I look forward to our continued work together, and it was nice seeing you. So thank you.
Likewise, thank you.
I would say the
Yes,
same.
Go ahead, Carol. Fry.
yeah, I raised my hand because it's just as soon as Jason started speaking, the microphone in the office there quit. I didn't hear a thing he said.
He said,
Carol, can you hear me, Carol?
I can now. Yes, it came back on right as you said, thank you.
It was a lot of thank yous.
Yeah. Well, I did have one observation, and that was, you know, and I'm not sure whether the methodology used here was, you know, designed only to, you know, to move forward. But, you know, one thing I would point out was that, you know, the recommendations of the commission, there was controversy about those being accepted by the city council. There's no, you know, at least I saw no indication with a small discussion about that part of the process. Would future reports, you know, I certainly would like to see them address those issues in some form.
Okay. That's great feedback. And we can certainly do that. Thank you.
sorry. Allie, it's Carol Jackson. I just wanted to say it's great to see you. I'm so sorry that you're not here for us to give you a hug.
I know.
Congratulations on your, I guess you've been married for a while. I just haven't caught up with that news. So I'm very happy
Oh,
to
Thank
know
you.
you've landed at the Riley Center.
That's
and-
right.
Yeah,
Very happy to be here.
so that's on a personal level, but I sort of had the same first impression as I think Carol Fry is speaking into. Frankly, I didn't know that this report was being so thoroughly researched by your team to literally drill down into, you know, the layout of the CERC's committee structure, and then the different goals and recommendations or strategies and recommendations that they came back to the city council with. So I went immediately to the obstacles, which is just the way I usually read something that, you know, is going to have a, what do we do now, next step attribute to a report like this. And I do think that in some ways, no fault of anyone that's been part of this really thorough research and, you know, persistent research, I think, in terms of the way you try to communicate with the department representatives. So no fault of anybody who actually worked on this process. And I'm hopeful that the grad students did learn a lot. It's real world stuff. But my first impression when I read, you know, the obstacles and then went back through the rest of the report was that in some ways, this is putting the cart before the horse, because we don't have authorization to undertake in terms of enabling department work for the vast majority of these strategies. I do think that that's why I'm so interested at all times to be connected more seamlessly, or at least more regularly, to the equity core team that's representing the different departments that we're hoping, you know, are picking up on the importance of these values that the city was clear about in 2020 as we established the commission. But I do think that it's incumbent on us working with the council to make that very clear, that that we will grow and benefit from the input that the departments give back to a commission like this, as opposed to us supervising their work or giving them, you know, the day-to-day ideas on how they can actually put the words into action. So I do hope that we can look at this objectively, that it's a report that sort of shines a light that we need to have the authority and the ongoing support of our leaders in the city, and that we can only get there if we have some ways of showing and telling why they should be supporting the work. And I do think that this report can help us drill down into some of the, more, let's just call it the voluntary reactions to the way that the report impacted some of the departments in the city. And start with what departments have taken on sort of voluntarily, as opposed to under some mandate that they had to incorporate the work. I know we're going to go on to our own subcommittee working group updates or whatever, so I'll save the rest of what I have to say about the internal review for that. So thanks very much, Ally.
Other commissioners? I have a couple of questions and an observation. One, Ally, can you tell us when the data collection stopped? Obviously, depending on what day or what month you stopped in, that's a snapshot that would tell us what transpired. I can use the police department as an example. Subsequent to the draft report that I saw, I think in April or May, they had proceeded to engage in the third-party assessment, which was a recommendation, and also, I believe in May or June, adopted some revisions to the CPAC guidelines, which were in fact recommendations. So those are examples of things that are moving forward. So it'd be important for us to be able to know, when this baseline was.
And maybe Ally knows, but it looks like the average, was started in March. April.
Right. So I mean, that's just one thing in terms of both the public that's listening in and for us to say that this is a document. The other thing I think is fair to note that the commission report contained recommendations that did not necessarily require action by city council, but departments could pick up and act on them. In some instances, some of the departments were already moving forward to do so. So the executive branch authority to move, if you will, I think is most of us reflected here, unless the question of authorizations or actions necessitated by action by our recommendations to the city council. So I think there is an important balance for us to think about moving forward. The degree to which the commission focuses on recommendations for necessary ordinance changes and programmatic changes or budgetary changes at the council level, or at the same time supporting and encouraging some of the good work that we hear being done and see being done to make progress by the council, by the administrator and administrators and different departments and agencies. I think it's interesting to reflect that some of the departments have fairly full-blown equity implementation plans, others don't. There's different levels of participation in the equity core team. Since Adrian's come on board, that's picked up and it's taken a different form. So I think that all these tools kind of working together in terms of it's, in my estimation, both looking at being encouraging and supportive of what the cheerleaders, if you will, for those good things that are happening in departments and agencies and lifting that up. And at the same time, if there are program policy initiatives that we think are important, BAR and others that we should do. So I think we're in a good space now.
Well, maybe that if departments are stepping up and doing things, basically as they are inspired to create some sort of work plan, then maybe it would behoove the mayor's office to just, have a memo that's on file that continues to encourage that kind of self-starting work plans. I do think that the clarity is probably missing.
Okay.
And I think that comes through from the outreach that Ally's team, tried to conduct.
So any specific recommendations for for this body in terms of how we might look at the report, use this, or give you more feedback? Ally?
For me, I think y'all have raised some interesting issues, and we'll be really curious to know kind of where you land on the balance that you were just describing between focusing on council work or focusing on amplifying the voluntary work that's happening at the ground level. And I think if you decide that maybe option B is the priority, certainly there's some opportunities for us to implement potentially some almost like policy program evaluation with metrics and performance indicators and things that we can do in collaboration with those leaders in the city who are doing this work and who are really engaged in this process. So certainly would love to keep the conversation going with y'all about any ideas that you have or future evaluation that you would like to see, or, you know, whatever you think would be helpful that we can offer. We're really happy to be collaborating on this.
Okay. No other questions. Thank you, Ally. Appreciate
Thank
it.
you. Thank you. It's great to see y'all. Take care.
Thanks, Ally.
Yep, I think this is probably what I'm going to say. I just want to make sure for the record, we notate that we do have a quorum this evening with 7 members. Just want to make sure for the record, we notate that. That's it. Thanks.
Thank you again, Mr. Co-Chair. The next item on next presentation, it actually emerges out of the work of the Special Commission on the Housing and Mobility Committee had recommendations specifically around the question of fair housing. There's a lot of information there. The Council Community Development Committee, I believe, at a recent committee meeting was discussing an ordinance, their fair housing ordinance. And in that conversation, it was suggested that the Human Affairs and Racial Conciliation Commission get smarter about that. And the premier knowledgeable person, leader in the area of fair housing in the city of Charleston, is the eminent executive CEO and president of the Charleston Area Urban League, Otho Meadows, who we've asked today to share with us information about fair housing and the work that you're doing, if you would.
This is cool. Good afternoon, everyone. I want to thank you for giving me the opportunity to be here. And thank you for, giving me those acclimates about how much I know about fair housing. And fortunately, I did not bring the right presentation, but what I would like to do is defer and touch on that information briefly, but give you some insight about what the Urban League is and what we do as an organization. Prior to coming to Charleston, I worked for the Urban League in Columbus, Ohio, and Indianapolis, Indiana. And in both of those cities, I worked closely with the Human Affairs Commission in both of those cities. And so I want to say from the onset that I am proud that this city has embarked on this journey to create the Human Relations and Race Conciliation Commission here. I'm excited about what the value added will bring to this community, and I'm looking forward to working with you all going forward, similar to the work that I did with both of those commissions, as I say, in Columbus, Ohio, and Indianapolis, Indiana. What do you all know about the Urban League? I need to start there. What do you know about the Urban League and the Urban League movement? Okay. Let me try to help you out just a little bit, and I'm not going to. I understand that I've been given 20 minutes. I'm going to use about 18 minutes of that time and do a couple minutes of Q&A. System. It's moving forward. After, we're good to go? Okay. As I say, I've been the president and CEO of the Charleston Area Urban League since 2006. And I just like to say that how I came to Charleston was via Mayor Riley. I got a phone call one day and someone said, Otha, we'd like you to go down to Charleston, South Carolina to see about revitalizing the Urban League there. And I said, Charleston, South Carolina, you can't be serious, right? And so, and I came down with the intent of just giving information about what I thought the Urban League should be. And Mayor Riley and a group of other folks, we sat around the table, but I honestly, I had no intentions of coming here. That was in 2006. And after coming here a couple of times, the only thing I saw of Charleston was, the I-26 going from downtown to the hotel to the airport. But what I realized was that if there needed to be an urban league anywhere, there needed to be an urban league in Charleston, South Carolina. And a lot of my relatives and a lot of my colleagues still don't understand South Carolina. And I just want to say that the worldview is very different from what we experience here every day. And so let me just give you this little bit of information about this organization that was founded in 1910. We are the second oldest civil rights organization in the United States, founded in New York City in 1910, 1 year after the NAACP. We have 92 affiliates across the country. We are still headquartered in New York City. And the Urban League movement is all about moving African Americans into social and economic mainstream in America. As I say, the Charleston Area Urban League is one of 92 affiliates combined. The Urban League affiliate movements, we serve over 2 million people a year. The thing that I want to say is that after Mayor Riley lobbied so hard for an Urban League affiliate here, after he was denied 2 times, Mayor Riley was persistent that we create an Urban League affiliate in Charleston. And he kept going, and after being denied, there was probably only 1 or 2 Urban League affiliates established after this affiliate. We were established in 1991. Conversely, the Columbus, Ohio affiliate that I worked at was established in 1913. And the other affiliate that I worked at was established in 1946. And so when you look at the Urban League movement, we've been in this business of providing programs to move African Americans into the social and economic mainstream for many, many years. Just want to say that the scale of the Urban League here is very different. I'll just give you an example. In Indianapolis, Indiana, 2 years ago, the Lilly Endowment created a $100 million endowment for the Urban League. While I was there, I was responsible for building a $5 million Urban League building. And so when you look at the traction and the footprint that the Urban League has in those communities, we're trying to do the same thing here in Charleston. While we're not on that scale, the mission and the work is still very much the same. There's still, the work that we do is based on the fact that there are still very significant disparities as far as African Americans, minorities, and comparatively, where they are in America versus the white community. We put out a report every year, the State of Black America report. We've been doing this report since 1976. And in this report, we talk about the disparities in education, healthcare, housing, and employment. And we talk about those disparities not only as it relates to this community and the Charleston, North Charleston Metropolitan Statistical Area, but we also talk about how that translates across communities across the country. As I say, we understand we made progress, but we still have a long ways to go. The Urban League, I say, we've been on the front line of civil rights for a very long time. The Urban League was responsible for putting together the research for the Brown versus Brown versus Board of Education. I'm sorry. The Urban League was responsible for putting that information together. We are on the front lines of, of asking America to look at providing equal rights for everybody, not just people of color, for everybody. And so we do that in a number of ways, and specifically through the programs that we serve. One of the things I want to make clear is that the Urban League, we're a nonpartisan organization. We don't endorse political party. We don't endorse candidates. We endorse policy. And I need to make that clear. The other thing that I need to make clear is the Urban League is not just for Black people, okay? We need to understand that. We understand that we are eminently responsible for working to create greater opportunities for people of color, but that is not exclusive to what we do as far as our programs and what our mission is. I hope to do the fair housing presentation at some time in the future, maybe in the next couple months or so, Adrian, because in response to the fair housing issues, not only here in Charleston, but across the country, we created a video. And in that video, we talked about the issues around fair housing, the work that we still need to do, but also what we did is we brought out historical policies that have been implemented by the federal government that actually contributes to discrimination. So the information that we've put together on fair housing is in direct response to the new affirmatively furthering fair housing rule that requires municipalities that receive federal funding that they must do a better job in creating greater housing choice, eliminating discrimination, and creating more inclusive communities. And so we put a lot of information around that. And as I say, we hope to give you that for a present and during a presentation, and sometime in the very near future. And I'm sorry for the confusion on that. But it's extremely important. What the federal government is saying in essence is, look, we've been giving communities and municipalities federal dollars for many, many years, but the needle hasn't moved in closing the gaps as it relates to fair housing and housing discrimination. And so we're working with the city to create an equity plan, Adrian, going forward that will help us as it relates to developing strategies in terms of how we do a better job in administrating fair housing programs in our community. The Urban League is the only certified fair housing agency in the southeastern part of South Carolina. That means that we are certified by HUD. Our counselors are certified by HUD to do this work, but we don't do it just for the Urban League. We do it on behalf of the city of Charleston. We do it on behalf of the city of North Charleston, and we do it on behalf of Charleston County. We do that in our activities include education and outreach. We do housing counseling, landlord-tenant mediation. We can find discrimination, Carol, all day long. But our motivation is education. We want to educate the broader community on what fair housing rules are, what their rights and responsibilities are. But not only do we want to inform the broader community, but we want to inform landlords. We want to let lenders know that they have a responsibility to adhere to fair housing laws. And hopefully some of what we're proposing will lend itself to some of the work that this commission needs to be involved in. The other work that we do at the Urban League is the Volunteer Income Tax Assistance Program. The thing that I want to say real quickly, and I'm going to get through this, is that not only do I want to talk about what we do, but I want to talk about why we do it. Okay, we do it because, let me just say about the Volunteer Income Tax Assistance Program. We administer the largest free tax program in the state of South Carolina. We've been doing this program since about 2010. And this is a volunteer program. Why we did this program is because we have the largest number of refund anticipated loans in the nation. That means a lot of people in our community go to payday lenders, alternative financial institutions to do their banking, to get loans, and to get their taxes prepared. And that's in the form of a loan where it is that they're paying upwards of 25% or more. And those people that are predominantly, impacted by that are people in communities of color. And so we started doing the free tax program, as I say, back 2009, 2010. This past tax season, we prepared over 4,000 tax returns, and the return on combined returns to this community was $3.5 million. There is no other program in this city that gets a return on investment like the VITA program. And we're talking about, on average, the household income of those persons who take advantage of this program is estimated to go up about 10%. And so extremely important program in terms of getting people to understand that there are better ways that they can manage and take advantage of their resources versus just giving it away, and understanding that if it is that they're able to manage their money and to take advantage of these programs, they can basically just have a greater opportunity to have a different quality of life. We do workforce development. For us, it's about get a job 101. It's not so hard for us to get a person to the workforce. What is hard in getting people to understand is how they need to be retained in the workforce. And so what we focus on is doing very intensive case management, where it is that, we want to look at transportation issues. We want to look at childcare issues. We want to look at, those other issues that may impact you from, getting to the job and being, having a positive experience. But the area that we're most focused on right now is pre-apprenticeships. That's jobs where it is that we take people through a pre-apprenticeship program and get them into high-tech manufacturing and high-demand, high-paying jobs. Carol, and Adrian, and we have people in our community who work 2-3 jobs and can't make ends meet. And so we got to advocate on, how it is that, we get employers around the table and talk about wages and understand that there are not enough minorities and women represented in industries that lend itself to high demand, high paying jobs. And so we're working to address that. Financial assistance, we provide rental and utility assistance. When you look at the COVID pandemic, those persons that were most impacted by the COVID pandemic were those households that had less than $400 in savings in the bank. As long as they were working, they had no problem. But once that paycheck stopped, things started to spiral down. Let me say that we administered over $500,000 in rental and utility assistance during the pandemic. I will say that over 73% were single moms with children. And so we, again, advocate financial literacy. We have a program free of charge. And we want, to get people coached up and get them to be financially stable and understand the importance of contingencies. And so let me just say that, we do this work in collaboration with the city and other municipalities. This is a campaign that we did, and you might see it on the Carter buses. All you had to do was click on a QR code on the side of the bus, and it would take you to the Urban League Fair Housing website, and and that will get you to all the information that you need and resources that you needed to know about fair housing. First-time home buyers program, and I'm going to wrap it up here because I know I'm going a little long. One of the most important things that we do is the first-time home buyers program. We did the last 2 home mortgage disclosure acts for the city of Charleston. And in those reports, what was revealed is that there's a huge disparity in terms of Black home ownership versus white home ownership. Less than 40% of Blacks and Hispanics own homes in our region versus over 80% of whites. And so going back when we did the first report, would you believe, and this was the 20 largest banks, would you believe that there were banks in this community that had never taken a loan or given a loan to a person of color? This is important information because that needle hasn't moved a whole lot. And again, this is something that I put on your plate because these are things that I think we need to address. And so we're working with banks and financial institutions to see if we can close that gap. We were just given a grant for down payment assistance for first-time home buyer, people of color. In the last 2 weeks, we have had 3 people buy their first home who've taken advantage of that program. And so we're talking about strategies that work. In our study, what we found is the greatest wealth generator or the gap, the greatest contributor to the wealth gap is home ownership. In this, the fair housing study that we did, the GI Bill created the middle class in America, but over 2 million African American soldiers who participated in World War II were denied opportunities to take advantage of the GI Bill. And the fair housing study that we did, over 87 loans that are given by the FHA are for people that are not. And so again, when you talk about the significance of the gaps in home ownership and the wealth gap that has been created, according to our research and supported by the Pew Institute, is that it would take Blacks 250 years to get to the wealth level that whites have today. And so we have a Washington Bureau, where it is that we have people working with elected officials on Capitol Hill. We again look at policies around voting rights, education, healthcare, sentencing reform, on and on. The reality is, and I close up here, is that we live in a society that penalizes for being poor. And we need to do a greater job in helping the neediest in our community move closer from the margins to the economic and social mainstream. Poverty is the root of all that's going wrong in our community, and I'm not going to get down in the weeds in that, but this, unfortunately, the poverty in America disproportionately impacts people of color and communities of color. And if we're going to move the needle, and if we're going to do anything substantively different to address all the things that I've touched on, it needs to be done collectively. It's not the Urban League in and of itself. It is what we need to do collectively, and I keep lifting up the partnership with the city of Charleston and the other municipalities, but also the other organizations. Because this is not an urban league problem. This is not a Black problem. This is all of our problems. And if we can do a better job in closing these disparities, addressing these disparities, not only in housing, but economically and socially, I think that we can understand or realize how great of a community we can really be. And let me stop right there. Thank you very much for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Question from the commissioners, Steve?
Yes, sir.
You know, okay.
Yes.
All right, there was kept blinking yellow while this is going on, so I wasn't sure. Just real quick, thank you so much for the presentation. When you come back with the other presentation, I just want to give you a couple things that I think should be addressed given the prior conversation we had on city council. Number one, the effect of any ordinance that we would enact on fair housing on affordability in the city. And then number two, whether we have under state law, the authority that we were suggested to give ourselves under the ordinance that was suggested previously. Okay. I'm not necessarily.
Yeah. We've had lots of discussion and when I say we, I sat on the subcommittee in terms of, looking at the fair housing ordinance, here in the city of Charleston, and advocated strongly that what we ultimately should do is have the city of Charleston to apply as a fact, a fair housing assistance program. And I think that would go a long way in helping us codify and understand, specifically some things that we can do that would strengthen the ordinance here, because it would actually put teeth in it. And an organization, and as I say, this is my experience with human relations and commissions before. And and I started to shoot you an email just 2 days ago. HUD put out the application for the FAT. But I strongly, as one recommendation, I strongly recommend that we, or the city, look at pursuing the opportunity to become a FAP agency. And, and I think there's some other things that can go along with that, but that would be my number one recommendation.
Can you send that so that we can understand the full breadth of responsibilities?
Yeah.
What I've heard, maybe our current council members know more accurately, but I've heard through the corporate counsel's office that they're concerned about us needing to be having some sort of enforcement arm that would literally rule on cases where discrimination has been, proven or complained, and then it would come to the city.
Yeah, and partly true, and let me just tell you, what my experience has been and what I know. Okay, there is a phase in period for becoming a FAP agency.
6
And
years.
it's more than it can be a year. It could be a 2 years. It's not a situation where you jump in with both feet.
Okay, I thought she said 6 years.
And so the issue that was brought to me while we were working on this was the cost.
Mhm.
Okay, and to your point about the enforcement piece, I will tell you that there's ways to do that would be cost effective. And I would say that probably 99% of the cases that would come through the potential fact would not lend itself to any type of litigation.
Mhm.
It would tend to lend itself more to mediation than litigation.
Well, it sounds like Adrian needs to organize we should have an, not a monthly meeting.
Yeah.
Workshop on this.
Yeah, and I provided, the subcommittee with a lot of information about the steps, et cetera, and it talked about the different potential responsibilities that an organization like the Urban League could assist in that, as due to the fact that we are a certified housing council agency.
Right.
And so there's not a lot of heavy lifting as far as funding is concerned. It's just a matter of being strategically strategic about how it is that you
So,
implement the
Yeah, it
program.
sounds
Yes,
like
sir.
we need to do a.
Yeah,
a work
yeah,
session.
go
Bob,
ahead.
you had a question?
Yeah.
So, currently, what's the volume of complaints that you process? And
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
one of the other considerations for Park is to look at becoming a human relations. And as I'm looking at the state statute,
Right.
that is the entity that's responsible for enforcement.
Right.
So what our quandary is in this whole conversation
Yeah.
is, one, do we take on that title?
Right.
Right,
Two,
right,
what does it mean?
right.
Right.
And three, the question, and there's no question that there's an affordable housing issue in the city.
Yeah.
The question is there housing discrimination
Right.
that a violation of the Fair Housing Act?
Sure.
Right, and what happens to that now? So can you just, I
Yeah,
know you got a
yeah.
full presentation.
Yeah, well,
What size of the problem is there?
yeah, well, I will tell you that we received over 1,200 calls to the Fair Housing Hotline that we had. We referred 11 potential cases of discrimination to the South Carolina Human Affairs Commission this year. I don't have the number off top of my head, but most of the complaints that we resolve lend to landlord tenant mediations.
Mhm.
Okay, and so we are working a lot with coming up with policies to help us or help landlords really understand the role they play in all of this. But the fact, and to answer your question, it goes well with the question, there is no doubt discrimination going on, but the situation is, and why I preference and uplift the education and outreach part. A lot of people don't understand what constitutes discrimination. That's why I come back and say a lot of what I anticipate the work of a body like that would lend itself more to mediation and litigation.
Yeah,
So if
I think we should have a workshop. I think
Yeah.
this is something that we.
Again, just
Yeah,
so the question is enforcement, to what degree, where can we find data on the level of enforcement of fair housing complaints in the state of South Carolina?
yeah, I think
Just
you can
because
get
the
that. I think you can get from the South Carolina Human Affairs Commission. Okay, see, the deal is, and this is something that I've raised with HUD, is that once we file the complaint, we don't hear anything. It's in the hands of the commission, and the disconnect, as far as I'm concerned, is that if the person who filed the complaint doesn't follow up on it according to their contact with the Human Affairs Commission, I think some things get lost in the wash. So there's conversations that I've had with HUD in the last couple of months, HUD is starting to require that they will be responsible for following up on cases that are referred to the Human Affairs Commission. So I think they're looking at taking a more proactive role in that. And as far as the enforcement is concerned, I would say that's the reason why they advocate having potentially a commission here in the city is that it eliminates that disconnect that I just talked about.
Yeah, I can see that.
You know, that people in this city will be able to more easily, you know, be able to contact and follow up on their complaint or situation because it's more local than.
And I promise this is my last question.
Yeah,
So,
I-
go ahead.
In preparing for the meeting, I did some looking at the fair housing work that's being done in Greenville. And there is something called a fair housing analysis of impediment study that's done has such a fair housing analysis of impediments been done for the region.
You had that here, the city of Charleston, you know, in their, the last plan, I think they did their, consolidated plan, with 2020. They identified all the impediments in that plan. So you have, the impediments have been identified already.
so the housing chapter of the city plan.
Okay.
Okay, so, I mean, yeah, so.
Again, the
They
interest,
did that as recently, I think the last one.
Yeah, it was adopted in 21, so.
yeah, the plan adoption, again, in terms of understanding, part of our challenge, as Carol indicates, is trying to figure out what
Right,
we should do at what level, all right, and understanding how much of a problem housing discrimination is, how it relates to the affordable housing matter, and how we can best align the resources is what we're trying to get at. So I appreciate you.
Yeah. You know, I would say this, I'll answer the question. The problem, and again, I guess something from the education knowledge part. The problem with that HUD has said over and over, the problem with housing discrimination is that most of it is not reported because people don't know that they're being discriminated against and don't know how to report.
Right.
Don't know the mechanisms in terms of how to report. So that's what it is.
we need you on mic. That's why she keeps trying to get you on the green mic.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, it's too many on.
Turn yours on. Just turn it on.
Okay.
There you go. Last question, both of them, we're gonna transition. So preparing for the next visit.
Yeah.
Can you make, I would like to see, because Urban League is national.
Right.
I'm sure you could, with your affiliate network,
Yeah.
find out, give us some examples of cities that are taking that next step. I'd love to
Sure.
see that
Yeah,
case study.
Yeah.
So thank you.
I'd be happy to do that. But also let you know that, you know, the National Urban League plays a very prominent role. And so I'd be happy to get that information for you and share it with you and get the right information, right presentation to you.
Can I just ask one other?
Thank you very
question
much.
About a
Appreciate
different
it.
topic about that. You compelled me to write down, you said the disparities between the lending percentages between people of color
Yeah.
and white borrowers is not being diminished to any significant degree. So is there a lenders group in the city that
We're working
that
with
the
banks
city has
individually, okay?
individually?
Yeah,
Wouldn't it
we're
be-
working with banks individually, you know, everybody is talking about doing a better job in creating homeownership and lending.
Right,
We don't steer, we don't say go to, however. And I just got off a call this morning with a bank and their mortgage team. You know, saying it and doing it is different.
right.
You know,
That's why
yeah,
I've seen
yeah.
lender groups been
Yeah,
successful
yeah.
because they basically put pressure on each other.
Right.
So it becomes, you know, a group think and a group strategy that they all have those goals
Right.
and then they have to perform.
Right.
rather than just trying to go to each one of them individually. So
Yeah.
we don't have that kind of lenders. So
We-
I'm on the
no, no.
Climb board.
One of
city board.
the ways that could work is, the city of Charleston has the Bank On initiative.
Yes,
And that's something, in my opinion, that could
Yes.
be done through the Bank On, initiative and bringing those potential lenders as a group to the table.
okay, I'm gonna put that on the
yeah.
economic.
Yeah, that just a recommendation, you know,
Yeah.
okay? You're welcome. Thank you so much. Appreciate you. Thank you for your time.
kind of address the question that I had.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry. Okay, thank you. Thank you so much.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Jerry, and thank you, Mr. Meadows, for the presentation along with Ally. So just a couple of updates. Good Stock Consulting, the chief financial officer has signed the contract and a signed contract has been distributed to Good Stock as well for their records. And we have received the invoice, so the invoice is now with accounts payable to be paid. I will arrange a meeting to have with Good Stock on next week with the co-chairs, just to make sure that we're still aligned with the September 30th date, having a refresher training for the equity core team, the joint visioning and the pre-strategic planning. And that is supposed to, also constructing a one-year heart plan development. I also had a meeting with the South Carolina Minority Affairs Ashley Owens, who is the program coordinator for the African American Division regarding collaborations. And I also had the same agency. I met with Tim McCray, who have been doing workshops, housing workshops in the Florence area, where they're giving information out, and wanted to know if the city of Charleston was interested. It sounded like we could do a collaboration with the Charleston Urban League. The Racial Equity Core Team, I put that attachment of the worksheet that was sent around to department heads in the email. And that is just one component. I was doing the legwork because we're going to come up with a strategic plan with the co-partnering with Good Stock. But one of those legwork that I was working on was the upward mobility worksheet. So that is because fire and police both have a track system where they know where they're going, basically in their positions. But if you are non-sworn, you don't have a track. So just to see how we can leverage more career expansion when it comes to supporting diversity leadership. Also, I was involved in a meeting with the Data Governance Committee. So the city of Charleston is now working under the Chief Innovative Officer, Tracy McKee, who the internal review subcommittee met with. There is a data governance committee, and that committee is to better improve the quality of life for residents with ethnical and equitable when it comes to data collection, how data is stored. And leaving out of that meeting, something that was brought to the light was the city doesn't have a central location where we can share data internally. So that's something that she's going to be working on with collaboration with all of the departments, also giving an equity lens to how data is collected. Upcoming, we have, of course, the Low Country Mental Health Conference. That press release was already done, and that's going to happen in June this month. I believe starts on the 26th, but I have the link there for you in case you wanted to register. They also have a virtual component. And there was a flyer attached for the Gullah Geechee Heritage Preservation Project. And there's going to be different information sessions, and you can also do that virtually, but you would need to click on that QR code to get registered. On July 31st from 11 to 12:30. As I stated in our main meeting, we were collecting information for Brooks Legacy. They are the Brook brothers, and Albert and Benjamin Brooks. They had several Black-owned businesses, which was a hotel, I believe it was a restaurant, and maybe a cab company. I believe it was a cab company. So that fits in with the economic empowerment component of HART. And Alvin will be giving some comments at that street sign dedication unveiling as the economic empowerment chair. It's July 31st at 11:30.
She said, yeah.
Yes,
And are we supposed to come to the joint session on September 30? The good stuff? Is that for heart or just?
I'm gonna have a meeting with the co-chairs and we gotta arrange the meeting next week. You said on the 30th. Oh no, the 30th of September is the, I believe that's when we're trying to conclude everything.
So we do want us to put that on
Yes,
during the day.
yes, I will send that information out as well, just so it's clear on everyone's calendar. And that concludes. You have any questions?
I got a quick comment, and that is that in our first briefing on the CAP study overview, one of the things the young lady was talking about was metrics, and going through the stuff, Adrian, you sent out. I was glad to see that there was a lot of what I looked at as metric collection, which is just how you make all this stuff work. So I thought that was great progress. And there was a lot of stuff to go through, but that kind of jumped out at me. And when she was talking about it, it kind of clicked together. I just commented on that. And there was something else that I was going to say, and now I've already forgotten that. Oh,
Thank
no, I know what it was. For the Brooks family, they're naming the streets. Are they putting up a sign or what? Because that struck me as a little bit of history and culture too.
Yes, so they're gonna, so they're doing the unveiling of a sign dedication. So the street name will still be the same, just like they did for Christine O. Jackson. It'll just be above it. And I can send you a picture of it, but it's just like the street sign's the same above it. So they're just gonna unveil it.
There won't be a historic marker.
No, ma'am.
I noticed on the way to James Island County Park, there is a very nice historic marker for the old community store that was there. I didn't know if anything like that was planned.
Not that I know
Okay,
of.
just-
Thank you.
History and culture, obviously it was kind of a big month with the opening of the African American I Am Museum. That I was actually working for the census that day, but it was a huge crowd as far over as King and Marion Square. You could tell there was a lot going on. That is now open, and I don't know what, I was just thinking today, I was wondering what percentage of museum space. I think it's almost doubled compared to the Charleston Museum. I mean, it's just a huge, significant opening, and kind of obvious. In the more mundane level of things, I found out that the city of Charleston, it's actually called the, as we determined here a little bit earlier, the Commission on History. And what I had gotten off the website was, I guess, the wrong chain of information on the website. They're apparently, at least according to one individual I spoke with, meeting on the first Wednesday of every month. And they have an active committee, apparently when something comes up. And, you know, so it might not always meet, but has been meeting fairly frequently, the impression I got, with an active group of members. And I was thinking that maybe we can see about, find out the next meeting, the agenda, and maybe I'll make it on my schedule. I can go to that, introduce myself, things. of
That's
that nature.
history.
It's, I think, called the Commission on History, I think
History,
is its
okay.
proper name.
They're on the agenda website, so you can click on.
Yeah. Yeah, if you go that way, if you go on commissions, then you end up in a dead end, which is what I did.
That's all. notice of activity being held on July 21st. It's a national organization that's collaborating with I think, the Social Justice Forum. The workshop is on Monument Summer, Aspiring Toward a Common History. There'll be a series of conversations. It's July 21st, 6 p.m. At Mother Emanuel. The mayor and a number of other city officials and a number of folks from the International African American Museum and others will be talking about monuments. And because the recommendations of Special Commission talk about the question of monuments and the role of the History Commission, I suggest that commissioners who are interested in this particular area plan to attend that session and listen in. I know that Dr. Felice Knight, who chaired the history subcommittee of the Special Commission, is making a presentation. So I would presume that the recommendations and the discussions that she put forward in the special report will be part of that discussion. So there may be some information, actionable information for us coming out of that.
Be a Friday.
Yep. Friday the 21st, 6 p.m. Yeah, and what I'll try and do is pull up the invitation, because there is a suggested registration for it because of limited space. So
Yeah, I did that.
we should circulate that.
Yeah.
Okay. Internal Affairs.
Well, I didn't take minutes because I think we had a really good back and forth with Tracy McKee, who is the city's innovation technology officer. And she, the reason that we were so keen to consult with her is she had made a report to city council the night that I think Jerry was being honored. Some night where we were actually, a couple of us were here in council chambers and heard her presentation to the city council, and it was about what the city has been calling their open data program. Let's just call it that. I don't know what they call it officially. Open data governance program. And they had made great progress in the year and a half since the council of that time authorized the creation of this effort. So she was presenting a lot of the beginnings of what they're doing on behalf of the city, which basically is just making sure that, you know, the city is understanding its data collection responsibilities and opportunities and not dropping any of those balls, is the way I would put it as a layperson. And on the way to doing that in such a thorough way, and you have to know Tracy McKee to appreciate that everything that she takes on, and she's sort of like a projects manager for a lot of things that involve crunching data, using data for final outcomes for the city. So for example, she was the driver of the redistricting, census-driven redistricting process that happened a year ago. Anyway, she takes on things at the ground level and works from the ground level up to develop things that end up being reliable systems for the city. And in the meantime, since she's made the presentation to council, the city has now been given an award by, I've forgotten who. Do you remember? Bloomberg. Yes, Bloomberg. And so that's recognizing all of the work and the accomplishment and the level of, the level of excellence that the city has taken on for doing their open data governance policy effort. In the process of making the report to council, Jason asked some really good questions about where does that leave an equity lens approach to how the city is collecting data and dealing with data and using its data. And she made a comment that I wrote down somewhere, and I was searching for it the other day before we had our little sit down with her as the internal review committee. I still can't find it, but it was something about, she said, I think that that's where we might still be showing some warts, something like that. Remember? Admitting that we had fallen short in earlier efforts, but so we followed up with her, and that's why we wanted to have the internal review subcommittee working group, sit down with Tracy. And I think she made it very clear to all of us that this is her own personal priority. Would you agree, Jerry? And was it just me and Jerry and you?
No, Carol was there.
Oh, Carol, yeah.
Yeah, no, I agree, Carol.
Yeah. So I do think that we have an ally in taking on this kind of goal, that we do want to be good partners to the city. She doesn't really have an advisory group that she works with outside of the city staff. And she said she thinks that would bring a lot of value to, the outcome of her products and efforts. So she seemed to be sincerely enthused about using our HARC working group to be sort of that informal sounding board when she had some ideas about things. That she reports on this mostly directly to the mayor. So it would really behoove us, I think, to be, good partners. We didn't come to any conclusions, but she sent us a bunch of follow-up documents afterwards, and one of them was the city's council's vote to create this effort. It's a resolution, I think, that the city passed a year and a half ago to create this open data collection and ongoing system. And then she sent us a couple of other things that I haven't opened yet. So I think we will have a really good ongoing relationship with the city through Ms. McGee's workload. And I think that's all we talked about. Right?
Carol Fry, you have any observations you want to share about that since you were on the call?
No, I think I agree with Carol. It was a good review, and she's done some very good work, and and she clearly, as Carol indicated, will be applying, the work that we've done and what she's doing. And, there were a lot more we wanted to get from her, but we used our entire hour. And things like, I was interested in things like, what the data universe for the city of Charleston looks like. And we weren't able to get into those sort of things, but I certainly would be interested in seeing some of that information in the future.
Well, maybe we should circulate among us a set of, questions that we can combine and then send them to her collectively before we have
That's
another
good.
sit down with her. So can you volunteer to start the list going around, and then we can add to it, Carol?
Yes, I'll do that.
Great, thank you.
My observation in listening to the meeting was, and it really kind of links to the first discussion we had with the CAP program. This is an example of an action taken by council, the work really being done at the city department level. All right. But the question, as we were talking to Tracy about questions, well, when you're collecting data around, I think she said flooding and housing were two priority areas, and that were priority. I said, well, do you have racial ethnic data? All right. That can inform our discussions. All right. In around those areas that would intersect. And she said, probably have the data, but we haven't cooked it. All right. So So the whole notion of the possibility of interdepartmental impact. And as we think about what the big questions are, or where the long-term discussions could be, I think this is probably a very, very good lever and partnership in terms of moving forward, and it could in fact be a major anchor, if you will, for our internal one anchor to our internal affairs discussion, because it kind of keeps it flowing. So with the core group working and the data group working, the two of those pieces, and then you superimpose the master plan over top of which says, you know, we need to be having information about it. There is a city framework, right, to ask the questions and then have the discussion about whether or not you want to act or not act, but at least there's a framework for it. So I'm pretty encouraged by that.
Me too. And as you're saying that, it occurred to me, I think we sort of ended our hour by agreeing as a little discussion group that, you know, for us, success would be having the equitable question answered every time, that we would not have to ask that as an outside, you know, well, did you think about this when you did X, Y, and Z? It was that would be a baseline set of factors every time there is some sort of ongoing effort at the city level. So I do think she's very sincerely.
Yeah, and perhaps to amplify that, part of what Tracy and her staff, the innovation group, is doing is try to set up templates for data collection, all right, for the departments, all right. May not necessarily be a mandate that they use it, but there is a standard that would be used. And by encouraging that standard, it would allow folks to ask the questions. So I think it's a good movement in the right direction.
I do have one question, I guess, comment. I won't speak long. Adrian, you mentioned something about not having a shared data system internally, the city. Can you briefly elaborate on that, and how is HARC going to help? I'm just curious.
Oh, okay, so.
Mhm.
Part could help in that. So when there are departments that have like, so housing.
Mhm.
It would be easy if you had a shared drive, something like Google or something like Box, shared drive where if there's something in housing, even if I have to ask for permission, you know, like get requests for permission, I could do that. But that doesn't exist. So you usually go to the person and request whatever it is you need.
Okay.
So internally, a lot of the departments have a lot of data that they have for their specific department, but it's not, there's not a location that it all is housed under.
Thank you. That's what I assumed. I just wanted to make sure that I understood.
Yep.
And the last piece is we measure what we value, right? So I'm really eager and to Carol's point, to Jerry's point, I think it's gonna be a good alliance, good partnership with Tracy in that office. And thank you for getting that established.
You're
Thank you.
welcome. Thank you.
Okay. Our public guests are timeline, but any items for discussion? Any commissioners want to raise? I assume that we all noted the interim appointment of the acting chief, Cheeto Walker, for the police department. Also, related to the criminal justice subcommittee report, the racial bias audit assessment contract has been extended. It's my understanding that the department and the team will be meeting to come up with a timeline to let us know when that report will be available. And the original timeline was a June timeline. It doesn't look like they will report in July, so it'll probably be August or September before that information is available. I would suggest that the commission, commissioners, particularly those who are appointed by members of the city council, sit on the public safety committee, pay particular attention to the report when it comes out, and perhaps have a conversation. We can figure out how to have a conversation with the public safety committee, contents of the report, how they put that on the agenda. Then the city council puts on the public safety committee. Any other comments for the good of the order? Thank you very much. Yeah.
Did we approve the minutes and I just missed that?
No. I thought we did.
No, we skipped it. We didn't have.
Oh, yeah, we did.
No, we know we did. We had a quorum, and then when Stephen came in, moved, seconded.
Okay, well, thank you.
Okay, good. Good catch, but we had done that, but. All right, we'll stand adjourned. Thank you.